Alright, so today's video is about succession. And by the way, we're not talking about succession like a prince follows the king and all that. We're talking about ecological succession, but it kind of has a similar theme to it, as you'll see. So what succession is it is a series of changes that happen in an ecosystem over time. This happens when a certain ecosystem is not quite reaching its full potential, for lack of a better term. I'm trying not to use the vocabulary term we will bring up in a minute. It basically describes, if you look at an area over a period of years, you might see small plants very early on, and then you see plants get bigger and bigger over time and see different species move into an area until finally it reaches this really complex ecosystem. So succession is just the way of describing these changes. And it gets broken down into three stages, which will come towards the end here. But before that, we're going to actually talk about the two types of succession. So primary succession is a way of describing the changes that happen on new barren land. So there is no soil, meaning there's no nutrients in the dirt that's there. So it takes a lot longer for, let's say you have, for example, an area that has been just absolutely wiped out by a volcano and lava has covered it, and that means that all of the ground is brand new rock. Well, there's no nutrients in that rock. Therefore, there's really no nutrients for plants to start growing on, even small grasses. So what needs to happen is nutrients need to build up over time, and very early on you might get some very adaptable organisms. Like this picture, these are actually Mr. Lencioni's pictures, by the way, but the top left there is a rock that has lichen growing on it. So it shows that even that small rock, the little, like, you never know, over time, a little, not a little plant, but a bigger plant might grow on that rock. But in the meantime, there's no nutrients available because there's no soil on top of that rock. So in the meantime, there's some lichen growing on it, and they are very, very adaptable. They can, as we've learned, you got fungus and you got algae, and they work together to provide each other the bare minimum for life. So lichen can grow on these barren areas. But anyway, primary succession takes a long time because it takes a long, long time for nutrients to build up in a new ecosystem and build like a soil base that will support slightly larger plants like shrubs and small trees like pine trees grow really easily and quickly, believe it or not. So anyway, now when we refer to a type of succession that happens in an area that maybe there's a natural disaster and trees and stuff get knocked down, but the nutrients are still in the soil, that is called secondary succession, okay? So the way I like to think of secondary succession is there's actually, my family has, like my uncle, my mom, they all co-own a place in northern Wisconsin. And about 7 years ago, across the street, even though it's in a national forest, a logging company came through and just wiped out everything across the street. So it was just like this big empty space across the street from us. Well, this is about 5, 6, 7 years ago, and after 1 or 2 years, we started seeing some new little bushes pop up. Now, as if you were to go there now, you would notice there are a bunch of pine trees growing there. So you had these stages of new plants repopulating that ecosystem, and because there's plants, there's now probably animals running around there. And it happened really quickly because there was already a bunch of nutrients sitting in the soil. So it was really easy for that to happen. That is secondary succession. So primary is when there aren't nutrients to start with. Secondary is when there are nutrients to start with. So let's take a look at the stages of succession. So at the very beginning, you have what is called a pioneer community. And these are the first producers that will colonize a new area. So let's say you have totally barren land, like you have an island maybe, a volcanic island that pops up, and there's no nutrients at all because you just have this small area of land and it's all just solid rock. Well, what's going to eventually happen is there might be, some birds that fly into the area and maybe they poop on that island. There might be seeds in their poop. Well, right at first, if the seeds for, like, I don't know, a strawberry bush, there might not be enough nutrients for that thing to establish itself on that island. But that said, there's still nutrients in that seed. So even if that seed gets decomposed by the bacteria that are inevitably in that feces as well, that's some nutrients that are available for future plants to come in. So let's say maybe somehow some algae and some fungus spread to that island, and they become lichen. They form together to help each other survive. Well, now you have organisms surviving in that ecosystem, and they are going to grow, and they're going to start building up nutrients in that ecosystem by virtue of them dying or whatever. So in more and more, you'll see things that start moving into the island totally by chance, because the thing is, spores can spread over long distances. One reason why you see coconut trees on lots of islands is because the coconut has adapted to float to little islands like this. So a lot of different plants and things like that get to islands totally by chance. It's a low chance, but when given, tons and tons of opportunities, it will eventually happen. So those first species to populate an area, by the way, these are always plants or producers. You never have a blank island and have like a bird just go there and live, because there's no nutrition for them. So anyway, pioneer species are the first species to populate the area during succession. Then what you start getting are transitional communities, and this is when you finally have some nutrients built up and you start to see new organisms that replace the pioneer species. So maybe this fake island we made up, after some nutrients have built up, some grass seed blows in and grass starts to build up. Okay, that's a transitional community where suddenly you have new plants that are populating that island. Then maybe over time, new seeds make it to the island. Maybe that strawberry seed that we were talking about before can now grow based on the soil content that is on the island, okay? And strawberry plants start to build up. So niches start to get filled by new, slightly larger organisms. You could even get small trees here. Pine trees are actually usually part of a transitional community, depending on where you are, because there are a lot of pine trees, like the ones we use for Christmas trees. They actually grow over a span of only like 7 years. They're not really that big of plants. They can be supported by a pretty low amount of nutrients compared to, say, a maple tree or an oak tree. And once you start getting bigger plants, you start to see small organisms move in. So you start to see insects not only visit the island, but then maybe stay because there's nutrition for them. Somehow, if like little chipmunks or mice or something get introduced to the island, although keep in mind, in order for mammals to get introduced to an island in this example, they have to be able to swim over there. They don't just magically appear. But as long as they can be supported by the environment, they will stay there. So these are all transitional communities. You could have many, 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 many transitional communities leading up to what we like to call the climax community. And this is the final organisms that move in, and they're going to resist competition from other organisms. So classic example of this is like redwoods. If you haven't seen the redwoods out in California, I recommend you doing that. But redwoods are super, super tall. What plant's going to outcompete them for sunlight? And they have these huge root systems. What's going to outcompete them for water? Nothing. In fact, you go to the redwood forest and you notice that pretty much plants live there depending on where the redwoods don't completely take up all the resources in that area. So you only really see plants in these gaps between the redwood trees. So anyway, climax communities are going to remain that way until there's a natural disaster. So if you have these established large organisms, they're not going to get outcompeted, so they're going to stay there until something terrible happens. And not only that, when you get large producers in there, you start to see large predators like hawks or eagles. So I just wanted to include this picture because I think it's a good picture that shows this visually all happening at once. So that first arrow there shows your pioneer species. So this was a fire, burned down this forest, so that makes it secondary succession, right? Because there's, even after a fire, there's still nutrients in the soil. So these grasses start to move in. That's like your pioneer community. And then this represents several transitional communities where larger grasses start to move in. Then maybe a few years later, shrubs get spread there, or pine trees, and smaller oak and hickory trees. And then towards the end, like it takes about 150 years. Yeah, it takes a long time to reach a climax community. This is your climax community where you have those larger organisms that can finally be supported by the soil content, by that ecosystem, and there you go. So please ask me any questions on the checkpoint. Make sure you do your checkpoint, and I will see you in class.